Forget soldiers and tanks for a second. The new global conflicts, they're not just being fought on battlefields anymore. They're being fought in the financial markets. It's like a whole new kind of war has begun, and the weapons this time are stocks, currencies, and commodities.
And that brings us to a pretty powerful question, one that recent events are kind of forcing us all to ask. Are governments, the very institutions that are supposed to provide stability, now actively creating chaos to make a profit?
All right, let's just dive right in. The markets have been absolutely wild lately. I mean, stocks, crypto, you name it. But some of these crazy swings, they just don't feel random. They feel, I don't know, engineered. And a couple of recent trades in the oil market are just, well, a little too perfect to be a coincidence.
So, our first clue is this absolutely massive $750 million bet against the price of oil. And honestly, the timing was so perfect, it's almost hard to believe. Okay, so here's how it all went down. First, a huge short position, that's a bet that prices are going to fall, is opened on Brent crude oil futures. Then, just 21 minutes later, news breaks that Iran is reopening a critical shipping lane, the Strait of Hormuz. And, just like you'd expect, the price of oil immediately tanks. The profit on that trade? Absolutely enormous. The timing? Suspiciously perfect. Just let that number sink in. $750 million. This wasn't some lucky guess. This was a move made with what looks like absolute certainty, placed just minutes before the one announcement that would guarantee a massive payout. So, you're probably wondering, how can we be so sure this wasn't just a lucky break or some standard trading algorithm? Well, the digital fingerprints left behind, they tell a really fascinating story. This really shows you why this trade was so bizarre. See, a normal computer algorithm is reactive. It waits for a signal, like the price dropping below a certain point, and then it starts selling. And even then, it usually sells off in little pieces. But this trade? Nope. The entire $750 million position was dumped on the market before any signal, and just minutes before the news broke. This wasn't a reaction, it was an anticipation. Somebody knew what was coming. So the crucial point here is this. All the evidence points to one conclusion. This trade wasn't based on public charts or fancy algorithms. It was almost certainly made with privileged, advanced knowledge of a major geopolitical announcement. Period. And if you think that was just a one-off, well, this story gets even deeper. This wasn't an isolated incident. Turns out, it was just the first part of a very carefully orchestrated pattern. So just 24 hours after announcing the reopening, Iran completely reverses course and announces the strait is closing again. And can you guess what happened right before that announcement? Right after oil prices bottomed out, a mysterious hand started buying, aggressively. When the news hit, the price of oil shot up nearly 10%. Another perfectly timed trade, this time in the opposite direction for another massive profit. So let's recap. We have two perfectly timed massive trades, both surrounding Iranian announcements. But the plot thickens. Around the same time, an Iranian official actually tweeted a very specific command that professional traders use on Bloomberg terminals, the system that's supposed to be blocked in Iran due to sanctions. This points to some serious financial sophistication right inside the government. And while all this was happening, another piece of the puzzle was falling into place in a neighboring country. Okay, so the United Arab Emirates made a really unusual request to the United States for something called a currency swap. Now, in simple terms, just think of it like a temporary currency loan between central banks. The US Fed would give the UAE dollars, and the UAE would give the Fed its currency, the dirham, with a promise to swap back later. And this is where it gets really weird. The UAE is one of the wealthiest nations on Earth. If they needed dollars, they could easily just sell some of their US bonds. So why ask for a swap? The theory is that this wasn't really about money, it was about sending a message. It was a geopolitical signal to the US, basically saying, hey, this regional instability is costing us, and we expect you to share the financial burden. So what does this all add up to? When you start connecting these dots, the perfectly timed trades, the signs of sophisticated market knowledge from state officials, and this unusual financial diplomacy, a whole new picture of our world starts to emerge. The crucial takeaway here is this. Financial markets are the new battlefield. We are likely witnessing the rise of what some are calling state arbitrage, where governments might be intentionally creating volatility with their own announcements just so they can profit from it using inside information. It's a brand new kind of warfare, fought not with tanks, but with trades.
Which really leaves us with a final, pretty unsettling question. If nations are actively manipulating markets for strategic gain, what does that mean for the rest of us? In a world where a tweet can be a tool for profit and a press release can be a weapon, who can you really trust?